Welcome to the second of this series of Plain Language Group calls this year. My name is Surin Butcher. I'm on the Plain Language Group and I'll be acting as your facilitator today. Got a bit of housekeeping. We are recording this session and it will be published on our YouTube channel. It'll be a highly interactive session, most of which will be spent on a Miro interactive whiteboard, and I'll be putting a link into the chat for you to access that shortly. You're welcome to use the chat in the sidebar, but we'd suggest you use it for technical questions and issues you have most of all, and put things on the Miro board as your first port of call, so that we can have a record all in one place. Please don't invite chatbots. Firstly, here's a brief introduction and some context for our session today. A Plain Language Group is an independent advocacy group dedicated to broadening and improving the understanding and use of digitisation in the construction industry and the built environment. And we do this by engaging with industry about their concerns and level of understanding, researching industry views to facilitate a better understanding of the challenge, publishing independent plain language articles, guides and information, sharing our knowledge and that of our peers with the industry online and in person, and supporting manufacturers, construction professionals and policymakers to understand the challenge of digitisation and make informed decisions to enable a digitised construction supply chain. Our philosophy is to focus on understanding what is happening, what is actually happening, and making that visible and understandable in order to facilitate change. And with me today are two other members of the Plain Language Group, Trish Massey and Paul Surin. Unfortunately, Rick Hartwig can't be with us today, and we send him our best wishes. So why are we doing these calls? Well, in March 2022, with the support of the IET, we hosted a very special invitation roundtable event for 60 senior leaders in construction and the built environment. That person in. It was facilitated by Jill Kernick, who wrote Catastrophe and Systemic Change about the Grenfell tragedy. It's the 8th anniversary of Grenfell tomorrow. The event was specifically for business leaders who might feel their concerns were not being heard and who want to investigate how these concerns can be addressed effectively at a company, sector and national level. And we wanted to identify the real barriers to change that the sector was facing and communicate those recommendations to government. And it was really fascinating, and I'll share a link to the report, which is also linked on the Miro board. It feels like the industry has been trying to modernise for generations, but we're just not doing it in so many ways. And we looked at 3 key challenges. And we suspect that 3 years on from industry voices and 4 years on from our Plain Language Guide to Digitisation, things have changed very little. There have been a lot of initiatives. The pressures are still there to deliver safe, efficient and sustainable buildings. So we're going to be holding a number of calls over the rest of the year, and then in the new year we're going to be hosting another in-person event. And we think the industry will only crack the challenges if we listen to the practitioners and ask the difficult questions. So that's why we're here today. So today we are delighted to have Anas Ayoub of XDHouse with us. And he'll be in conversation with Paul Surin for about 20 minutes of the call. And whilst they're talking, you'll be able to post your questions for them on the board. And we also have some questions for you to think about as well. And then that will prompt our discussion for most of the rest of the hour.
Very nice to meet you all, and nice to be here.
Thanks, Anas. Okay, I'm just going to put the link to the Miro board in the chat again. There we go. Now, if you click the link and follow the instructions, you can add your name if you like, but you don't need to add an email address. And you don't need a Miro account. This is what the board looks like here on the slides, and we'll be going from left to right. If you have any trouble getting onto the board, just put a message in the Teams chat and we'll see if we can fix it for you. But obviously I'll be sharing the board and we can always post things up for you. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing that and then I'm going to go onto the board and let's see who's here. that the right one? Yes. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to start here. Oh. Bring to me. There we go. Okay, so warm up first of all, just to get you used to using it if you haven't already. Just a couple of minutes on this. So I'd like you to drag one of these yellow sticky notes over onto the board, and whilst it's selected like that, you can type your name into it, and then you can stick it wherever you think you have no information problems or you have lots of information problems, sort of roundabout in the middle, probably me. And then if you move down to the second board below it, you can put in who you are or who you work for, depending on what works. Is anyone having trouble getting on the board? If you need to move around, there are some instructions over here on the left as well, which might be useful. Okay, so I'm just going to, whilst you're doing that, point out that the next area here, just to briefly recap, we'd like you to answer any questions as yourself, if you can, as an individual, but you may want to answer on behalf of the people you work with, your company, or even your colleagues outside your company. Phil's right out on the corner of that, I've noticed. And recognise, obviously, that no one can do it all or know it. We need to collaborate and respect other people's positions and experience. And underneath that, there are a load of resources, including introductions to our speakers from their LinkedIn profiles, and then below, lots of links to all our stuff as well, if you want to have a look at that. And I'll be sharing most of those at the end of the Teams anyway. And before I hand over to Paul and Anas, I'm just going to bring you all over here. And you'll see here there are 4 boards. 2 of them, this is your homework for while they're talking. The first 2 frames on the left for specific questions for Anas or Paul about the stuff they're talking about in particular. But on the other side, on the right, there are 2 questions which for you to consider and answer whilst they're talking. So one is the thing I want to understand better is, and the other is I want to use technology too. So go ahead and do that as we go. And you can also use the voting dots in each corner to upvote any sticky if you want to. So with that in mind, I shall hand over to Paul.
Thanks, Sue. And thanks again, everyone, for joining. And thanks, Anas, for joining and taking your time. The reason I asked Anas to join is to kind of give us an overview of what kind of, I don't want to say what the future kind of technologists or architects kind of profession looks like, but I think from my experience, I've been 2 years now. For everyone who doesn't know, I've been working for NEOM for a project called Trojena, responsible for digital delivery as well as other ICT backbone infrastructure. Just to give you an idea of the scale, it's about 60 square kilometers projects with over 128 assets, including infrastructure, mixed residential, commercial, retail. We have over 220,000 different models. That's your Revit models, down to your DWGs, down to your Rhino models, your Bentley system models. So quite a lot of information, data. Work with about 40, coordinating with about 40 different consultants, from your Jacobs down to your WSP, down to your ACOMs and others of this world. And it's I feel like the technology supports what we need to do. Obviously, there's still basics which doesn't work very clearly. So basics around what still, unfortunately, what BIM is, what BIM isn't, information management, basics around data. And that's when I turned to Anas a couple of years ago, asked for help. Basically, I needed someone who understands architecture, someone who understands information management, how to deal with different models, especially in this large scale volumes of 200,000+ models. One of our biggest model of a ski village, which is a big complex, mixed residential, commercial, retail, ski slopes, contains about 1,400 models. The size of the federated Naviswork model is close to 100 gigabytes. So it really needed someone to understand how to use technology effectively, how to understand information management and understands architecture. So I thought I would ask Anas to give an overview of what they do. Some of it is applicable to our project, and at the end, I'll also show you how our team internally managed to deal with some of the time constraints and the sheer volumes of documents where we have to review not just models, but say 20, 30,000 documents, drawings, PDFs, specification documents. So we've piloted some stuff with Microsoft, and we developed an AI tool which helped us to compare documents, read the drawings to required standards. So once you done, Anas, I will just show you quickly. It's a video, quick sort of 5 minutes video, 2-3 maybe minutes video, which shows you an example of reviewing a specification document. So over to you, Anas. Thanks for your time. Thanks for taking the time. And yeah, the floor is yours.
Absolutely, and it's a pleasure to be here. I just want to highlight that I really love the name of the group here, a plain language group. I think I need to be up to the challenge of simplifying all the abbreviations that I'm used to talk about. But yeah, we do need more plain language to have a better enclosure where we're including everybody in the industry. So just a quick brief about myself. One of the many definitions I have about how I define myself. I'm an architect by trade. People tend to define themselves by profession. Another person in this world. I'm also an entrepreneur. I've started my business, XDHouse, which is about 3.5-4 years ago in Dubai, and after a successful start we decided to move here to London and open a branch. But in generalization, I do define myself as a technologist. I've got some slides perhaps that can help me define some of the examples that Paul was referring to in his introduction, which I hope didn't bring the expectations too high on what we bring to the table here. So sharing my screen right now. Let me start from the top there. I'm going to try to stick to the time frame that we have here, which is 20 minutes in total, but I'll be trying to finish in 5 to 10 minutes if possible. Yeah, well, we're an award-winning digital creative firm based in Dubai and London. We focus on design and automation, BIM plugins, and platform interoperability and real-time reporting, serving from the Middle East and London. We've got projects footprints all around the world almost. We've got a nice line there, and we happen to win some awards and been shortlisted for some awards. One of the recent ones is the DCA here in London, which is going to be announced in July the 1st. So wish us luck. We're shortlisted for the information management best practice. And yesterday I received the news that we got shortlisted for another 3 awards in Dubai. It sounds like we're collecting awards left and right here. Which I will be attending end of this month to start with. But in 2023, we've been awarded as the Digital Construction Innovator of the Year as a recognition for our automation. Last year, we were also shortlisted on the Building Innovation Awards, and we've been participating in the Build Offsite Challenge, where we were the finalist as well. Last year, we've also happened to achieve the Kite Mark for the information management. So ISO 19650 Part 2 and Part 5, which is the BIM design and construction, and Part 5, the BIM security. We're an appointed party by the nature of what we do at XDHouse. So we produce information. So we're, as my colleague Megan always calls us, we're the purple team in the chain. We try to upskill the team with all the up-to-date collaboration and production softwares. We happen to keep the skill set up to date, especially with Revista, for example, recently. NEMA have recently highlighted us as a success story with the certification that we achieved. Our current way of collaboration looks in a process map as simplified as this, with real data dashboards that we're trying to not just to be focused on generating the data for the sake of it, but at least select the kind of data that will allow us to get to a potential value that we can add to our projects in the build environment. So we just launched our new website, and I wanted to use that to showcase the kind of automation that we're using right now through the products we're launching later this year. We're currently using some automation tools that we've created internally to produce more drawings, more models in a shorter amount of time, but also in more efficient values where we're adding more sustainability measures, etc. So this is XD cladding. We automate the process of building envelopes for cut lists, fabrication, etc. And another automation solution we happen to highlight is the XD Landscape. So in general, we have these 3 products that we're launching this year. Starting from August, we will launch XD Landscape, and then XD Cladding and XD Fit Out. Basically, we're trying to disrupt the market by simplifying our work and say, you know what, we're just going to look at it from 3 perspectives: what's outside of the building, shell of the building, and inside of the building, and then try to bring things back to basics. One of the case studies I wanted to showcase here was the DFMA we've done with Melbourne Quarter Tower we've done in Australia. So DFMA is a big term right now, everybody's using it, but and I'm really glad the manufacturers are being more included in the conversations of designs. So we've done this project with our client in Australia to deliver the DFMA design for manufacturing, for fabrication, manufacturing, and assembly, working off-site to give them the cut list, and 4D is about showing the sequence and logistics and giving the data to all stakeholders to be able to deliver on time. So this multi-layered roof, for example, was designed in segments where once you reach that height on a high rise, for example, you would need all these safety measures to be there, but also the accuracy and the quality of the materials and engineering that was designed to be delivered and installed in the right manner. So these technologies is not just a buzzword; it is being used right now in multiple projects, and this is just a snapshot of the roof that we worked on there, and this is a snapshot of the production of components that we deal with to produce such. Another case study I wanted to shed a light on is the New Footscray Hospital, also in Melbourne, Australia. The 4D is being brought to the picture, where it can allocate more insight on priorities. Construction projects happen to have a lot of changes during the process of delivering, and having that kind of insight will give you more hands-on decisions when it comes to engineering, design approvals, and procurement, etc., and all associated decisions around procurement and installation, etc. So we're trying to take automation not just for the sake of it, but also to provide the value that we need to provide here, which is to enhance the built environment, to provide a value that can add a better decision making. Another insight here was the project we've done in Abu Dhabi in the Middle East, Tahad Arena. It's also an envelope multi-layered roof system and facades. We happen to automate the multi-layered projects here through these steps. First, we would model all the layers and then apply them to the facades, and then interface these corners and produce all these drawings and cut lists, just like what I showed you earlier on the other projects. So yeah, we believe in automating the process, but also including everybody else in the process. And that was just to shed a light on how we're taking the AEC hat, wearing the digital, we happen to be lucky to work on some of these projects, Paul, which you probably were part of the journey to see what we're doing. But happy to hear your questions. I'm not sure if anybody have voted any questions so far, but happy to discuss.
They have already, and we'll come to them when Paul's finished. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm gonna share my screen. I'd like to show you some of the work, like I said, what we're doing. Hope you can see my screen. So basically, this is a demo just showcasing a use of a design tool which is built on the OpenAI and Microsoft large language model. It basically helps us to review MEP or multidisciplinary consultant submissions from anything from drawings down to specification documents. This is an example how the system can basically read specification requirements documents, put it into structured tables and into much more user-friendly user interface. And then what basically would happen then is you would set your requirements. So you would set up your requirements, for example, this showcase in terms of sensors, medical rooms, for example, cinemas, how many fire safety, what are the fire safety requirements in cinema, water quality requirements, residential bedroom requirements. So we have sets of documents within NEOM, which are engineering quality standards requirements, which came from multiple standards. And then what would then happen is this is one of the examples of submissions, basically, which would come through Aconex, through our CDE. And the idea is that you have only 5 days to review. So this is one document out of thousands of documents, and you have 5 days during the stage gate review for a second cycle to review. And that would basically require multiple users to be able to review the documents. So one of the things we wanted to do is for the users, for the design managers and engineering managers to be able to, it's quite simple, just basically chat and review the documents and iterate the documents in their own plain language, and without the need of going through multiple standards and requirements and try to basically compare them on a like-for-like basis. So in this case, it would be comparing, I think, close to 20 different standards. So we loading up here 22 different standards. It would be anything from fire safety requirements down to specification requirements. And then what it would do is you would just submit the document, the specification document, and it would start classifying it, grading from A, B, C, and D, E, and F. This is our internal grading system in terms of what acceptable document adheres to standards, semi-adheres, doesn't adhere, does not mention anything at all. And it would pick up where, for example, zone for cinemas. So you could see it says the document does not adhere to the standard, but mention related information to discuss it needs to have air supply and return for digital cinema for projectors and closures. So it goes into detail. It also reiterate pictures, images, drawings. And what it would do is it would allow you to open up that exact section in the document and review it by yourself. Because one of the important thing is you can classify maybe the A, B, and C's, and you can classify them and let AI automatically classify them as kind of and respond automatically to command resolution sheet. But the ones which are much more complex, you want them to review. So that was the idea of the tool, that will allow you to review that and deal with these comments, classify the comments. It would, like I said, it would open up the document. It would highlight what the standard says, grading, and it would also highlight it in the document itself where it is. This works really well also in drawings. So you can add comment resolution sheets. And again, what we're trying to do here is to automate common resolution sheets, which are right now our Excel sheets. So every designer spent on an average 3 hours of non-value added time on every stage gate review. We have about so in overall 120 hours, we lose in 120 hours a year, basically on every stage gate review. This will also show in just a report. So it's just an example how simply you can, and this was done, by the way, by Copilot Studio. So it's not obviously the free version, is the more developer version, which would allow us. The reason why we looked at Microsoft was because we are on Office 365. And what it allows us to do is to start you start using Power Automate as well. So we can start automating Excel sheets, basically reducing the number of Excel sheets, but also the need of someone to attach the common resolution sheet to an email, because that again takes time. And like I said, if we can reduce, so what we believe that in a combination of tools like that, plus we now implementing also Revisto for model review, we can reduce the 120 hours per designer, and we have about 200 designers in our team. We can reduce the 120 hours to about 30 hours per stage gate review. And if you think we have about 50 stage gate reviews every year. So like I said, it's averaging 120 hours. So times it by 200, even if we half it. So that's a huge amount of money saved. And basically, the investment in the technology pays back itself within 2 years, within about 18 to 24 months. So it's all, by the way, most of it is in-house. Some of it is with the support likes of Anas. Like I said, the Revisto team is helping us a lot. But yeah, it's a good example how you can, on a relatively small budget, what you can do with a bit of a experimentation, with a bit of a proof of concept, and working with the right vendors.
That's
I
fantastic.
think that's our time up.
Yeah, thank you very much, both of you. That's really good. Let's go and have a look and see what people have been doing. Oh, people don't want to understand anything, but they do have questions for you. So let's zoom in here and let's have a look at what Anas has been asked.
Bring it on. Yeah.
Okay. Where do you want to start? Take your pick.
You give a random pick and I'll just make it quick.
Okay, well, we'll have the one that's voted on. How do you access the relevant manufacturer's information?
Right. I mean, we're usually working on very specific projects for specified material, so we would be in contact directly with manufacturers. We see the tools like MBS, BIM objects, etc., and we also see how not ready it is in many cases when you need to use it on a real project to produce drawings and models. So there is a problem there. I think the question there is trying to make a notion that there is a hint of a problem, and we don't think it's solved yet in the industry, but there are some nice initiatives that we've seen, including the ones you've done there, Sue, and on the DCW. Paul, we're going to give it a go.
Yeah, I'd like to add on to that. Just one of the things we discovered also is that manufacturers and some of the websites like BIM Store, BIM Objects, even NBS, they hold the information in certain languages, and there is an issue. We inherited the model with 3 different languages, basically different language types in the model, because the consultant and the designer, the disciplinary consultant, works in a certain language, and it's causing lots of issues. And also, what we also noticed on, I think it was on one of the similar to NBS site in Germany, that we had 2 different units of measures as well. So we ended up with basically 2 different units of measures and 3 different languages in one model.
There you go.
That's terrible. Okay. Now you can pick one.
Right. I think skeptics about technology tend to see it as a cost barrier and more complex. Why do you think that is? I think we need more plain language. That's what we need to make it more direct to the benefit and the value that we're trying to be bringing. I think if you draw a line between the plain language of allowing the decision to be made, whether it's a drawing or a model to make the design get approved, and then there is the technology that is filled with IT, architecture, and all these hardware and softwares. And sometimes we get too much lost between the two. I think if we define that line, we will be able to make more decisions on the left side of things, which is the plain language. And I can see that a lot of people wanted to use the buzzwords and say that we're doing this and that. So we're in a transitional period of defining what's working, what's not working, and maybe by time I'm kind of positive. Maybe I need to be more pessimistic about things, but I mean I can see that I'm biased towards the idea that we are on the right track and we're getting things better in the industry. So yeah, I think more plain language will solve the problem.
That's good. What is your biggest challenge when dealing with multiple software vendors on a project?
The CDE solution, I think, is the biggest. You need to have all these crossing of data where everything is aligned. Every process, and every project has a certain project. Every client has a certain project. Every supply chain member has a different process, and I think we need to simplify by having a data dashboard that can bring all this insights without missing the workflow and the process. So process first. I think we need to solve the process and simplify it, cut it as much as we can. Paul, go on.
Yeah, I'd like to add on to that. I think the barrier are also the vendors itself. I think it's a big one of the biggest issues is that the vendors just don't open up there's if you want to call it applications. They all say, oh, we have APIs, but that means absolutely nothing. So that's one of the biggest barriers. I personally sat down with Oracle. I sat down, put them into a room with Revisto and with Microsoft, and the Oracle refused to basically even talk to the others. So there's a real issue in terms of the vendors. And then I'm not even talking about the likes of Autodesk and others. They basically it's a monopoly, and it's basically lifting the analog issues into the digital or the application landscape.
I agree. I was in this event yesterday, the next day in London, and they were talking about this in a panel. People were debating about the IFC whether IFC, somebody said IFC is crap, and somebody was defending IFC. And on the other hand, it's nice to see these conversations happening and taking place, I would say.
Yeah, and it's not about IFC, it's not about data. I think the issue lies in it's an IT issue as well. So what I think also needs to happen in the industry needs to start looking at, they need to bring their IT people into the conversation of digital construction. That is not happening right now itself as well.
Yeah. So I don't know how many questions you want to take left. Do you want to take one last one and then we move to Paul? Just a few questions of time.
Yeah.
I can pick one if you want.
Yeah, go on, pick one.
Yeah, I think I like the question there where it says, what do you or your client prioritize, geometry or information?
Oh, yeah.
I think information is important to make engineering decisions, but geometry is also information to include everybody to deliver the right message to the right people. So geometry can help us visualize better, bring us all to the same picture. I don't think one should win over the other. I think we should try to balance both as much as we can. It would be nice if we have both in one team, but unfortunately we're still trying to pick sometimes between the two. Sometimes it's a time, it's a time barrier. Sometimes it's a skill barrier. But I think balance is the key.
Yeah.
I can just add on. Yeah, I was just going to add on to that. What for example we see is where you have for example structure steel model with 120,000 ton of steel. you would have a specification and information data in your model about secondary steel, but the geometry is not there. And what you find out is issues where you have the MEP suddenly missing holes for MEP, which could have been prefabricated. And that's just because the traditional clash detection happened on just general clashes, but it's not happening on the actual information and data and the geometry attached to it. So that is again something I feel lots of the multidisciplinary consultants lack. They lack understanding what really clash detection should be and should include, and what is the balance between geometry and data and information.
Yeah.
Over to Paul.
Yes, I'm going to come down there now. Relationship. Yeah, so please do, Anas, if you want to answer some of the other questions we've posted, and yeah, if you want to vote on others that you want to be answered so that he can prioritise them, that's absolutely fine. Let's have a look at what we've got for Paul. Can the tool read PDFs?
Yeah, it does. The submissions were all PDFs, by the way. So
Oh, right, yeah.
yes, it can. It can read also document drawings. But like I said, don't read in it that it's anything special. It's just literally you can do it by yourself. It's just an example. This was a week of work of my couple of growth students who built this for us in-house. So you can do it. The tool reads international standards. So what we did, maybe Trish, you can talk about something what maybe you do with BSI and SEN. What we did is we basically collected the PDFs of international standards and our internal standards, which is a mix of international, because we also bind it by American standards as well. And then we created a structured tables from it, because one of the things I feel is lacking right now is the standards are available in XMLs for XSD formats, but that's not useful to us. So we had to build our own structured tables from the actual standards to be able to make them machine readable. And it's not definitely data templates. I can tell you, it doesn't work.
So the question so in the past, when we had the 22 thing, we were talking about standards being machine readable. Now we're saying we don't need that now because an AI agent can read the standard and make it into a structured data template. But why not? Why isn't that happening automatically? Because it saves the industry so much work.
Not quite as simple as that. So after developing standards for on different national, European and international levels for many years, I've now been having my first test experience on the ISO IEC online standards development, OSD, you'll probably see it referred to, platform. And I think it's a real game changer. And I think it's built on Fonto XML, which, if them are familiar, is a web-based editor that's very similar to Word, but it adds real powerful features like the basics of real-time collaboration, automatic numbering, clause locking, built-in quality checks. So all these are, you could look at a large language model and say, come on, agent, you do all that for me. But when it comes to standards and something that's prescriptive, I think you do need, it's a support tool. And Sentinel, they've done this overlay of SMART, which is defined as specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. It's sort of an add-on to OSD that gives supplementary provision for markup, tags to text, and various things like that. But when I started using this tool, when you think of that in context with some of the work that's happening for me personally at SEN, which is pulling out essential characteristics on product standards and developing guidance and education for standards committees to use in the future to digitize standards, then what you can do with that is limitless. Paul mentioned language challenges and units of measurement. It takes all that away. There's so, like, technology is running so fast, but it's really exciting. Like, there's stuff there that's happening.
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting because I mean, we noticed yesterday the report in construction management about the building control review process being that there's a process of investigating whether the process of checking against building control requirements could be automated. And Paul said, well, they're already doing that in Estonia. So why are we talking about reinventing the wheel over here? Why don't we just go over to Estonia and find out how they did it and do it their way? And what's really interesting about all this stuff coming along is small companies like Anas's company are looking at a problem, finding a solution to a problem and working out how to fix it and then making that available, presumably on the market, a bit like tools like Slack, for example, were invented for a small group of people to work together internally, and then it became an externally used tool. Same with Twitter. You know, all these platforms, they developed to answer a problem. In the meantime, the cogs of standards and regulation are turning really slowly because that's how you have to do it. Meanwhile, we come back to Phil's point. I think, Phil, you put on the other post, why are we running before we can walk? And yeah, we are. We're running, aren't we? That's what we're doing. We're getting on with it.
We have to.
Could I just ask a question? So two things quickly. One is what you just said there about the standards. I thought the standards now, most of the standards are behind a paywall.
They are.
So how can you run? Are you able to run? I've not tried it. Are you able to run AI over those, or is there some restriction? Because if that's the case,
certainly restriction, George. What I'm referring to is the sector-specific challenges around things like digital product passports and delegated acts with the Commission. So it's the future. It's taking things, utilising standards for the provision of future ways of, for example, declarations of performance and conformity.
Yeah, I was referring back to what Paul's done, which looks brilliant in NEOM. But what you've done there with Microsoft, presumably you must have had access to the local codes and the local standards.
So we have obviously we have purchased the standards, the ISO standards. So the local standards are based on ISO standards and American standards. What you can also do is, I don't know if you're aware, and I don't want to be advocating for that, but there is a way, and I've posted this question before, is why ISO 19650, BS ISO 19650 cost £185, and the same ISO 19650 from Estonia in English costs €35. So that's a question for not for us to obviously answer, but there is ways. And you can search also. You can search for the cheapest standard of ISO 19650. I've even done it recently. There's a table. I can probably, if I publish, I will feed off a few people. But yeah, that is a question why it costs this much. And I fully support. I've been working with Trish for years and years of standards, and what really annoys me is there's loads of really good people put in their time, free time, travel, and then they don't see anything from back. So I think there needs to be my opinion is there needs to be a revamp looking at the business case, how this is all being paid, because if we want to have a proper strict standard, and the standards need to be adhered to, and then they need to be followed up if the standards you do or don't follow, bit like DVLA. So something needs to happen to revamp the whole business model and get rid of the standards mafia as it is in Europe. Otherwise, it's not going to happen, and it's very difficult for anyone to understand. That's something we've tried as well in-house. Is if you upload, I think there is about 25. You can get the basic BIM standards, as you call it. Try to upload them just for a fun to a Copilot, even the free version. It would spit out that they are contradicting each other, the standards.
Oh, I'm sure, absolutely. And in fact, that's so. Coming back to the other point that Sue was making there about Estonia, I think you raised it with Estonia with regard to automatic checking. Obviously, Jeff Wicks did a load of work on that years ago in Singapore, but the difference was there that a lot of the regulations are prescriptive.
Yeah.
Whereas in the UK, the regulations are not prescriptive. So therefore, a lot of the code checking, I don't think it's going to be straightforward to do that in the UK. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. I mean, there's always an issue. What you want as a client. I mean, in our case, I'm very prescriptive, and I'm very strict in terms of what us or me as a client I'm requesting from my MDCs or from my design consultants. That's why some of them, they just can't stand me. But because I believe it's the best way is if you're very prescriptive and you know what you're asking for, you get the right answer. Then you can't moan that you're not getting the answer. Same with manufacturing. I was on the manufacturing side, so I know it's absolute pain in the ass for manufacturers, if the client not answering the right questions and leaving it open on a classic design and build to contractors who cares about just stage 4, deliver it as cheap as possible, and then they screwing down the disciplinary consultant. So, for example, we completely revamped over the last 12 months, the way we want to work as the client and be actively involved. And it was the reaction of our main contractor, who is our PMC, is our managing contractor, was like, well, you don't need to be involved. You come in for a handover. And they were literally shocked that we want to be involved even in reviewing of shop drawings. So that's to answer that question. What about foundational data? Yes, we want foundational data, and we're very prescriptive. We even had to develop a digital delivery information enclosed requirements because of the ISO 19650 is being so open and so open for interpretation, and it's not prescriptive enough. So we had to build enclosed requirements which do require, how even things like how inspection sheets, or even I'll be going into the detail how, for example, the toolbox talks on health and safety are being recorded, signed off, and followed up. And unfortunately, you have to do it as a client. And if it comes from a client, or ideally, it would come from a government. Good example. Sue mentioned Estonia. You mentioned you look at just Czech Republic. Look at Germany. Czech Republic. They have by law it's prescriptive how you have to submit your planning permission. Otherwise, you don't even get your application to be accepted by the local planning team if you don't submit it in a digital format and the format they are looking for.
Just to round that off, Paul, if you think about anything that you do online that's structured, if I want to register my car, if I want to apply for a passport, if any of these things that are prescriptive through a template, you have to answer in a certain way. You can't sort of go around that and be vague. If it's a yes or a no, it's a yes or a no. There's no way around that.
Yeah. And I would like to add as well, one thing I'd like to add is that the difference between, say, if you even look at 2020 and 2025 is huge. I believe you don't need structured data. I know it can be controversial. You can have the way, for example, we deal with it. We've gone to what's called data fabric. So we worked again with Microsoft, where I know we have about 3,000 people who it would be a nightmare for me to explain them data templates. And I've tried it once with Lars. We invited him and after 10 minutes, everyone just fell asleep and did not understand even what their name is or didn't know their name is. So it would be a nightmare. So instead of that, you teach them basics, how to, and that's something, again, what I realize is people don't know even how to use Excel correctly. And we're asking them to look at modular structuring data. And I looked at, we did again something in-house where out of 200 designers, I had 150 of them, none of them using Excel correctly and putting tables, even simple data into tables. So I think, again, there are tools right now out there where if you use them correctly, you understand the basics, you can really accelerate the way you use data, and you don't necessarily need to understand what is 23386 and data templates and IFC. You really don't need to understand that. It's good if you do, and if your champions do, that's how it should be. But the users, the business users, don't need to understand what is a data template and structured data. They don't need to. They don't need to do that.
That's a really interesting discussion. I want to pull us over to these questions over here, which are about challenges, negative sides, impacts of using AI. So, for example, what have been your challenges for using AI? How do you deal with hallucination? Has the tool been tested to avoid hallucination? How do you police it? Can you say a little bit about that?
Yeah, we did. We constantly testing it. So we basically running every 2 weeks we run in sprints and we reviewing the tools, we collecting the feedback, and we have data stewards in our I have data stewards in our team who actually their role is just to pick up these kind of things, and we don't use it. We always right now we encourage our teams to use it as a support, so they still need to make a decision, but it will help them to do the decision quicker. They don't need to open 10-20 screens. They see it and they can iterate it for themselves. So that's why.
So it's not making the decisions; it's just flagging up issues to look at.
No, yeah, we don't. We want because we are accountable as the client, so we need to make I always encourage the people that they have to make their own decision because they are accountable. They can use the technology to support them to make the decisions, and I think that's again this whole discussion: is AI going to replace you? No, someone will replace you who is using the AI will replace you, most likely. Not the AI will not replace you, but someone who uses the AI. And like I said, I see it myself is I can review thousands and thousands of documents, and I don't want to, but 1 week we measured individuals and I could perform 5 times more tasks than others who were not using it.
Yep, I have to admit, I asked that question, Paul, even though I know the answer to it. You told me about it before, but I just wanted you to shed a light on that. But great tool there. You worked
absolutely on. That's brilliant. Well, we're at 5:02 now, so I'm going to move us on. Although I love isn't the plain language group about trying to make things understand question easier to understand? Yes. Is this too complicated? Yes, it is complicated. You don't actually have to understand it in detail to be able to use it. And most people, when they're doing their job, for example, senior people, they need an awareness of what's available and what's possible and what isn't possible and what to be concerned about and risk management. They don't actually know how to do Excel spreadsheets, right? But somebody does need to know how to do them. So that's it's worth talking about. Phil, whilst I have a look over the rest of the thing, do you want to say something?
Yeah, so thank you. It just really, to build upon what you were saying there about the comment I put in about the plain language guide. I mean, whilst all this conversation that's going on is fantastic, and there's probably a lot of people on the call that understand this at a very high level better than many others, I think we're missing a trick. That there's an opportunity, or there's much more work to be undertaken in the lower echelons of information management. Paul made some really valid points there about the skill set of people on just simple using Excel and tables, etc. And I totally get that. I see that frequently. But unfortunately, we're still not having honest conversations about the integrity of information within construction and specifically in manufacturers and the supply chain. I know you've been addressing this for quite some time with this group, but there's still a lot of work to be done at the bottom. And I almost feel like we're trying to now leap too far forward and start talking about all the kind of complex stuff to do with the modelling information when the data's still not reliable.
Yeah, and there is recently went to an event at UCL that flagged that up. What the biggest problem the data scientists have was the quality of the data. I completely agree with that. Yeah, I don't think that this conversation discounts that, and absolutely. Now, before I let Paul talk, I just want to give you the opportunity to give some feedback. So if you have a look at the bring all to me, there we go, over here. So what went well, what didn't go well, what I'm going to do now, that's you personally, what we, the plain language group, should do a call about. If you fill those out, and Paul can say what he wants to say.
Yeah, no, I was just a reaction to Phil's comment. Yes, it is a problem, but what we've decided is that we deal with it as a client. So we will deal with that problem ourselves, and we will work with manufacturers because of my previous roles in Wienerberger. Then we deal directly with the manufacturers. And what we also have done for the quality and the data quality checks, we enforce the disciplinary consultant and all the contractors to use for example, Revisto, but then we give them the licenses for free, so they can't moan that it costs them money. They can't moan, they can't do it. We say, okay, there's the license. You don't pay nothing, but this is what we want from you. If you don't do it, you're out. And then we go directly to manufacturers. We also enforce things like minimum information requirements as a declaration of performance, although it's not mandatory in the Saudi Arabia. We do require a declaration of performance because it's the basic information from the manufacturers. And if we deal with the likes of with the likes of Siemens and Schneider, where we had issues, we go directly to them. We sit down with them and we said, these are the minimum requirements information we want from you for us to be able to operate your equipment. And if it's not there, we can't even include you in the approved manufacturers list. So we won't encourage the manufacturers and work with them, so then we can validate the integrity of the data and information, because we are accountable. So we have to.
It's interesting, isn't it, how quite often the supply chain says the client doesn't want it, so we're not going to do it. And so it's quite interesting that you're working for a client now and requiring things, and how that's happening. And I know there was a question about what have you learned from working as a client since you've also been in manufacturing.
I've learned that back to Phil's comments, the training, quite a lot of BIM certifications, you can just gain them easily. They not good enough. I also learned that unfortunately there's a lack of understanding of in the supply chain of the disciplinary consultants understanding what BIM is and information management is, including contractors. And also is that I still believe manufacturers need to work with the clients, because manufacturers are very well educated, because they have a very well defined manufacturing processes, and they just need to work with the clients in order to unlock the information they have and they can provide throughout the life cycle of their product systems, whatever.
Anas, have you got any thoughts to add as we come to the close?
I think again, plain language is very key for us to include everybody in the industry. There are these experienced senior people who have missed the technology wave, and there are these who have got advanced. I think it's important for us to have this meeting point, and I just want to say it's an amazing structure. How you structured the Miro board, and it was very interactive. and very well done. And I enjoyed speaking to you all. So thank you very much.
Yeah, it's been fascinating. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll leave the board open for a while after the session, so you can carry on collecting your stuff, and then we'll look at it a bit later on. So feel free to answer any of the questions that we didn't get round to, and you'll see underneath there's a link to our mailing list and our YouTube channel. I'll put those in the chat as well. On Teams. So only remains to say thank you very much for participating, all of you, particularly to Anas and Paul. We'll be writing another article soon, and look forward to seeing you on the next call. And thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Have
everyone.
a lovely weekend, everybody.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Cheers.
Yeah, have a good one.
Okay.